All right, you guys, we are going to imaginary islands today. It's kind of cheesy, but when you were little, you might have remembered thinking Santa was so real. Hate to break it to you, it was your parents the whole time. And oh, some of you were probably mad because they lied to you and all that good stuff. Well, same thing is kind of here. Okay? For years and years and years and years and years, your math teachers have told you that the square root, let's say, of -4 doesn't exist because you can't take the square root of a negative number. Um, we always tell them to write that it's a non-real answer because there really is an answer and it's called imaginary numbers. Okay? So all we've ever known are real numbers. You were told that the square root of -1 was no real root. It doesn't exist. Can't do it, whatever. But now we're breaking the truth to you today, and here we go. Here's what you need to know. The square root of -1 is no longer, you don't write no real root anymore, okay? Along comes this fairy and tells you that the square root of -1 is actually I. From here on out, anytime you see the square root of -1, it is I. The cute little fairy comes, and that's what happens, okay? So when we do the square root of -25, what I want you to think about is writing this as the square root of 25 times the square root of -1, because -25 times, or 25 times -1 is -25. This much we know is 5, and the square root of -1 is no longer not a real answer. That's not what you write. The square root of -1 is I. Okay? We're going to skip this one, but I'll tell you that the answer is 4I if you want to think about it. Here we have to do a little bit of breaking down. This is the square root of 50. Okay, so I want you to think about this as the square root of 50 times the square root of -1. The square root of 50 can be broken down. Okay, so the square root of 50 can be 25 and 2, and the square root of 25 is 5, and then we have the square root of 2, which is 2, and then the square root of -1 is I. Okay, so I want us to make that just a little bit prettier and make this be 5I root 2. What we always say as math teachers is that when you see this negative right here, you can do a little shortcut, which is plucking out the I. So right away, if I want to, I can rewrite this as I times the square root of 50, and then just break the square root of 50 down too. That would be another way to do that. And I'll do that here. I see a negative number underneath a square root, so I will make this be I root 27. And then the square root of 27 can be 9 and 3. The square root of 9 is 3, so I will have 3I root 3. All right, and now we're going to leave Imaginary Island and go back to the real world again. Wah, 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 right? But some things you need to kind of know. Again, the square root of -1 we already have talked about as being I. Okay, so now we're going to take some things that have imaginary numbers in them and think about that. Yeah, I actually don't want this to say that. What I want you to say, what I want this screen to say is this. I want it to say that I squared is -1. And when you think about that, when you square this and I square this, that undoes that, and I squared becomes -1. So that's the other key thing that you need to know. Okay, so here I will go ahead and multiply these out. I'll multiply the coefficients and then I'll multiply the i's like I normally do. So -3 times 2 would be -6, and I times I would be I squared. But then you need to remember that I squared is really -1, so I have -6 times -1, which just becomes 6. Okay, I will tell you, I want you to try this one, but I will tell you that you get -12 for your answer. All right, here you're going to get this, and you will be tempted to just go ahead and multiply these right away. I will tell you that whenever you see negatives underneath a radical, the correct order of operations would be to pluck out the i's first. So don't multiply these together to make this be the square root of +24. That's not what you can do here. If you do that, you're going to get every one wrong on your accelerated math. The correct order of operations would be to pluck out the i's first, okay? So I do need to make this be I and then root 12 because I have this negative under here. I need to make this be I root 2. Okay, now you can simplify it if you want. And I can take the numbers that are out in front, or the variables out in front, and I times I would be I squared, and then root 12 times root 2 is root 24. And root 24 can break down. If we think about prime factoring 24, we have 2 and 12, and 4 and 3, and 2 and 2. So your prime factors are here. Again, you have to be in pairs to leave the house. So this pair of 2's gets to go on the outside. On the inside, I will have a 2 times a 3, which is a 6. Okay, so I will have 2i squared times root 6. And then I squared is negative 1. So I really have 2 times negative 1 times root 6, which becomes negative 2 root 6. Okay? What looks like just a simple tiny problem, actually you have to do a little bit of thinking on. So we'll practice one more like that. Really quickly, actually, you know what, I'm going to let you practice it, and I will tell you that you're going to get negative 2 root 6 on this one also, even though it looks a little bit different. Okay, we will go and do this one together here. So one more time, I am going to take these negatives right here and pluck out the I first. And again, take that negative and pluck out the I. Okay. The square root of 9 is just 3. So this right here will become 3i. And then the square root of 27, hopefully you can see, I'm going to do this off to the side. The square root of 20, well, actually, I'll do it here. The square root of 27 is 9 times 3. The square root of 9 is 3. So I have 3i root 3. And then, of course, I still have this 3i over here. All right, and now if you combine that and you look at what's happening out in front, I have 3 times 3, which is 9. And I have I times I, which is I squared. And then I have this root 3 right here. And then I squared is negative 1. So I have 9 times negative 1, which gives me negative 9 root 3. Okay, and that should do it for this one.